Colin Plume, president of Noble Gold. Thanks for coming on again, my friend.
Jordan, always a pleasure. Happy to be on here. Ready to
Absolutely. And
get
with
into
your
it.
expertise in the gold and silver, the precious metals market, and then from many reputable sources, we're hearing that precious metals like gold and silver could be the end of central banking. You know, it's something that I'm always interested in keeping up on. And again, with your expertise, you know, what's the latest? What's the latest with precious metals? What's the latest with the Federal Reserve and alternative currencies?
Yeah, I think this year has been a real interesting year because we've started to see a lot of the central banks really dive in more to gold than they have in the past. Russia and China obviously have been net buyers of gold, and I think that people right now are looking at the landscape, the investing landscape, and they're saying, where can I get a decent, safe return? And I was actually just reading an article, an interesting article about gold and silver this year, that it's even outpaced, just this year has outpaced the investments of Warren Buffett in terms of just growth.
Wow.
So it's been a great year for gold. I still think silver's tremendously undervalued. Gold is undervalued too, but silver I think is real hot button. People are forgetting that, silver mining has been down tremendously for the past 10 years. And, really silver mining is it's a byproduct of the mining of other metals. So it's, one of those things that if they're not mining tremendously for gold, they're not going to be mining for silver, even though the uses for silver far outweigh gold. So I think we're in an interesting development in terms of just investing. And then you look at Europe, Europe's a bubble right now. They're in negative interest rates. So you put money in a bank in some of those countries and you're making negative a return. So I think people are starting to wake up. They're starting to open their eyes and realize that, gold's a really good place to be for their investment portfolio.
Yeah, not just countries investing money in gold and silver, but you told me this lately, is that there was this CEO that invested millions and millions of his dollars, like all his money, into gold and silver. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Overstock, the CEO of Overstock, who has been a proponent of alternative currencies from the get-go. Overstock has been one of the first major companies to accept Bitcoin as a currency, which we've talked about a few times, which I think is fascinating. And he believes in alternative investments. He's always bought gold and silver. He recently put $90 million of his net worth into gold and silver. So he
90
believes,
million.
yeah, he believes
90.
Yeah, 90. Yeah. And he's always had, there was an article a few years ago, he's always had enough gold and silver to pay his employees if, let's say, we couldn't use fiat money. He's always had enough gold and silver to pay them for a certain amount of time. So he's been prepared. He believes that the dollar will fail, and so he's putting his money where his mouth is. And it's interesting because obviously Overstock, the most of the currency transactions are happening in fiat money. People are buying items there, but he still believes that, that currency, that transaction will eventually move into other forms. And that's why he's hedging his bet with gold and silver. So when you see these big investors putting all this kind of money into it, it obviously makes you think that there's something to it.
Absolutely. And with the way that the gold and silver market over the last 5, 10, 15 years has gone up, multiple hundreds of percents, they know something. They definitely know something. They're good with their money. That's why they have a lot of it. And they're putting their money into gold and silver. And what's all this going on with the Federal Reserve as well right now? What's the Fed doing to try to, get a wrangle on the gold and silver market?
Yeah, so what their Fed is doing is they didn't announce quantitative easing phase 4, but they did. And what that means is they've opened up their balance sheet. They're buying short-term bonds because they've seen a lot of volatility there. And they're trying to expand the money supply, which is something that President Trump has talked about. But basically what they're doing is they're going to be buying bonds. They're going to do what they did in 2008 and 2009 until 2011, and they're going to expand that supply of bonds. And they're going to use their money and buy those bonds and hopefully get more money out there to stimulate the economy. It's one.
This sounds like more inflation.
Absolutely, it is more inflation. That's what they're doing, and that's why when you look at how gold performed from 2008 to 2011, it was a natural reaction to an expanded money supply, because obviously the value of the dollar is going to shrink. No one's going to put their money in any of those bonds because they're just going to drop continuously in value. So I think that what we're seeing is we're kicking the can down the street everywhere. Every country is just getting more and more debt. Just really just building this, our balance sheet of the country is 21 trillion in debt right now. So, and I've read reports that anywhere from 18 to 25% of our budget goes to just paying off debt. And anyone, if you just kind of took your own situation, if you're spending 18 to 25% of your net worth or what's coming in monthly on debt, that's going to make it very difficult for you to grow. And I think that's exactly what our country is doing right now. Is they're just kicking it down the street, going into more debt, and unfortunately it's a very short-sighted investment strategy.
Yeah, speaking of growth, somebody investing into precious metals, discuss where the prices are at now and what you project the growth for them to be over the next, say, let's shorter time frame, maybe a year to two.
Yeah, I mean, all the major banks, they've all come out and said that anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 by next year is realistic for gold. And I think silver is really just undervalued. I think that, silver is the only precious metal today that is lower than the price it was in the early 1980s. So think about that. Think about anything that you could buy from 1980 and then think about it today. Obviously, the cost has gone up exponentially, except for silver. Silver's the only one. So we are seeing a tremendous amount of people in their IRAs buying silver. We've been moving a ton of volume, obviously a lot of weight in the metal, which is fantastic. And I think, in the IRA is such a great way to do it, because if silver doubles, let's say we get lucky and it just doubles over the next 12 to 18 months, that investor can always take some of that profit, keep it in the IRA, and it's tax deferred. So that's, really one of the benefits. And that's why a lot of investors are doing it within their IRA, because they can really capitalize on those gains, take some of that profit off if they want, and they would, defer that tax to a later time. Whereas if you buy it outright outside of the IRA and it doubles, you sell it, obviously you'll have to pay the tax at that time. And
that's a good little workaround against the man right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody needs a tax advantage. I would say if you're not looking for these, and they're not even loopholes. I mean, these are legitimate ways for you to avoid paying a lot of tax. And I think that's, a lot of people right now, as they get closer to retirement age, they're trying to get into that position where they can kind of avoid some of those big hits. And also the great thing about it is if you don't have to pay that big tax hit, then you have more money to invest. That's the beauty behind it, is that you don't lose all that investing power. And, really that's something that's important at any age, is being able to have that investment power at your fingertips. And so it's an exciting time, to say the least, with metals. I think we're just at the beginning. The stock market's still been holding up pretty strong, but I think a lot of people think next year is going to be real rough for the stock market. And that'll be a real telltale sign of where the economy's going.
Gotcha. And for somebody who doesn't really do IRAs or retirement funds or things like that, and just wants to look at physical gold and silver, what are ways they can do that, and which would you choose, gold or silver, or what's the case there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we ultimately getting education from us at Noble Gold is the most important. We don't tell anyone to do anything. We just give people the options. I can say that in terms of just looking at people that have bought for us over the last 90 days, you're probably looking at pretty close 50-50 split between gold and silver for us. But that's not to say that, some people have done 100% silver, some people have done 100% gold. Gold is even though I talk a lot about silver and the excitement of silver, gold is one of those assets that every central bank owns and very rarely sells. I think the only central bank that you've heard about selling gold was Great Britain in 2001, 2002, and it was one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made financially. But since then, you really don't hear about any of these the central banks selling any gold. You just hear about, countries buying gold or buying gold mines. So I think the safe bet is always gold. There's a lot less gold in the world, but I do think that silver is a metal that I want to have. If I'm choosing, I would definitely want to get some silver in my portfolio.
And silver, well, one being a lot cheaper, you saying it's very undervalued, but it's also used in a lot more industrial processes, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's much more fungible. That's a lot of people say, well, if I have to trade and barter, what am I going to do with a $1,500, $1,600 1-ounce gold bar? And that's the thing that silver gives you, is that you can get junk silver is a great way for tradability or fungibility. When you look at junk silver, which is basically, junk silver are coins that were minted before 1970 that actually have silver content. And so if you look at coins that were minted before 1965, they're 90% silver and then 10% other metals. So you could buy a bag of that silver, for instance, and let's say you needed to trade and barter, you'd have a quarter or a $0.50 in there that's worth $3 to $8, depending on the price of silver at the time. So that's a really good negotiable price. So a lot of people will buy that silver for just that by itself. So they have something that, let's say the dollar falls apart, the grid falls apart, and you and I want to trade, and you got, let's say, some kind of food that I need. I have this silver quarter that's 90% silver, and we can trade and make a transaction pretty easily because it's a low dollar amount. So a lot of people will buy it for that. And then even I've had clients tell me, this is kind of a funny story, is like, if you think about theft with silver, let's say you had junk silver, like let's say you just had a big jar of junk silver sitting in your living room, and that big jar could be worth, let's say, $20,000, a big jar of silver. And then, someone comes in to rob the place, and they're pulling all these heavy TVs off the wall, and they're moving all these other items, and they're stealing this and that, and they could literally walk by the most valuable thing in the whole place because they don't know that those quarters and $0.50 and dimes are actually worth more than probably most of the other junk you have in your house. So that's a funny analogy, but it's true. And legitimately, no one, unless they were really savvy, they wouldn't know that jar has that $20,000 in silver in it. So I've had clients just, they buy it because they like having that liquid wealth, and in a form that is hard for someone to know the value. Now, gold, you can fit $1 million of gold in a shoebox, and I'm sure if a robber came in and found some gold coins, they're obviously going to take those. But silver, junk silver probably wouldn't fit the mold of what they would be looking at. So there's a lot of interesting reasons why people are buying it from us today. I think also, if you just look at, let's say you're setting up your inheritance for your grandkids, a lot of people call us and go, hey, I got 4 grandkids. I want to set aside a little bit for each. And it's a really good way to set aside some wealth that if someone passes, it's easy to understand the value of it because you just do an equal amount for each grandchild, and it's there when something happens to them. And that's
it's going to combat inflation. It's going to continuously grow year after year. And
exactly. And also, just being able to have something private to give to them, which is a big reason too, because obviously when you pass, the government's going to look at all of your accounts and your cash and everything, and they're going to, tax everything to everywhere, up to the sky. So we have a lot of people that do that too. So there's a lot of different reasons why people are setting themselves up with gold and silver, but we can accomplish all of them. Any of those needs, all those scenarios that I presented, we've been able to do for a lot of people. And, we can really explain it down to such a simple form that anyone can kind of digest it.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Let me check one thing. I got 2 more. And how are you guys helping people directly? And how are you educating people as well? What sort of information do you have out there and how to get people investing in gold and silver?
We just created a new video series called learnaboutgold.org that will be out, and it should be live in the next few days. And that's a really great way. I'll send you the link. Also, Jordan, you can put it at the bottom of this video. But that's a really great way to learn about gold in a kind of easier to because you're just watching videos. Basically, we've kind of wrapped up the whole process in 20 minutes, but we've cut it into 2-minute videos to make it really easy to watch, depending on how much time somebody has. So what we're trying to do is just make the process and learning about gold easier every day. And that's why we created this new offering to get people educated about gold and silver.
And you have ebooks out there too, right?
We have tons of ebooks, absolutely.
Yeah.
And ebooks are also included in the video series, but we wanted to even simplify it even more and create videos, because obviously people love to watch videos as they are now. So I think call us, learn about alternative currencies. If you want to learn about, if you call in and want to learn about gold, but you also want to learn about cryptocurrencies, we have guides about that. Just, feel free to ask our staff for anything that we have, and then just spend time and ask a lot of questions.
And lastly, you guys have some awesome commemorative coins too, like incredibly etched and 99% pure, 99.9% pure silver and gold. So just quick couple thoughts on that.
Yeah, Trump coin 2020. We have our new Commander-in-Chief coin. Great gift for the holidays. Obviously, everyone's thinking about, what do I give dad? What do I give mom? Think grandpa, all these things. So check it out. A U.S. minted coin. It's an original. Nobody else has this coin. It's by far the best looking Trump coin on the market. So anyone who wants to check that out, go to TrumpCoin2020.com and use the code Jordan. You'll save $5 per coin. And all that great stuff is available.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Colin, for coming on again with me here and sharing all your knowledge.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.
Much appreciated. Take care.